Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's a tremendous pleasure for me to welcome you to the DevOps Pro Europe 2022 conference. My name is Max Körbecher, and we are here today to create this 3-day event as a way to gather everyone together and build a special bond with you and the growing DevOps community. During these 3 days, the internationally recognized and highly skilled professionals will share their insights and practices of DevOps methodology and will help you to improve the skills you have been keen in learning. You will not only be able to receive the valuable knowledge from our experts during the sessions, but also interact and ask questions during the Q&As. Just in a moment, we are going to dive right into the first session for today. But before that, I would like to say a special thank you to our sponsors for contributing to this conference. We say a huge thank you to our golden sponsors of this year, Accenture, which is a leading global professional service company providing a broad range of services and solutions in strategy, consulting, digital technology, and operations. TechTree, which is building the first social economic network for devs and their teams. No spam, own what you create, support open source. TechTree is a platform that helps devs and tech people unlock the value of their network, knowledge, and data. And besides, this year we have a knowledge partners who prepare great gifts for you. Pact Company will award the most active conference attendees who rate the sessions and leave comments with the free ebooks of their choice. Also, a great competition for winning free books will happening on Manning's virtual booths. Check it out. To round it off, I can't express our gratitude enough. These next 2 days are going to be all about you because, let's face it, with you, the conference wouldn't be happening. So to kick it off, the second DevOps Pro Europe 2022 conference day, I would like to invite Gurpreet Sachdeva to talk about the value stream thinking, the next phase of DevOps. The stage is yours.
Thanks, Max, and good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Let me first start sharing my screen. Yeah, I hope everybody can see my presentation. So at the I would first like to kind of introduce my topic of today's talk, and then I'll give you an outline of what I'm going to achieve in the next few minutes. So by no means I want to kind of go into what DevOps is, and I'm assuming that everybody is already a DevOps expert who's attending this conference. But we have realized in our experiences that, at least my experience, that DevOps indeed has crossed the chasm of the software in the software industry, and we have seen some amazing transformations with DevOps, which has evolved from the early focus on teamwork and empathy to driving actual value to the organization. DevOps indeed creates a collaborative environment that brings together development and IT operations under one umbrella. So, in theory, and when effectively applied, these core elements drive efficiency, high quality software, and faster release cycles. For many organizations, DevOps has been transformative, but however, there are a lot of other enterprises, organizations, which are still struggling to know what exactly the value they are delivering to the end customer and what value they're getting out of their IT investments. And that is what I want to kind of talk about, that how we can complement the DevOps initiatives with value stream thinking, so that these two concepts together can help us in actually understanding what is the overall value which we are creating out of our products and release pipelines, and what kind of values we are giving to our end customers. So very briefly about myself. So I'm working as senior director at Capgemini Gurgaon. I'm a co-founder of Delhi NCR Java User Group, and I blog on Java and DevOps related topics on my own blog. And I've authored in the past a book on Elastic Stack, and also have a video course on DevOps. And these are my coordinates on Twitter and LinkedIn. So yeah, so this is the outline of the talk for today, like what we will achieve in the next few minutes. So I want to kind of introduce, first of all, the kind of metrics which are available and which are mostly commonly used for measurement of any kind of DevOps practice. Because without measuring something, you really don't know whether that is successful or not. Then, how agile and DevOps practices help us in knowing the state of any system. Then I'll introduce the value stream management concepts, then how we can create a value stream map, uh, how we can have assessment workshops where we can do these kind of mappings. And then in the end, what benefits you can achieve if you complement your DevOps practices with value stream mapping. So these matrices, these statistics have been taken from the Accelerate State of DevOps report, which is annually published by our DevOps gurus like Nicholas Force Green, Gene Kim, and Jez Humble. So there are two important, I would say, buckets: throughput and stability, which are very important to measure, like how successful are you, how successful any organization is in their DevOps pursuit. And they feel those Nicole and other people feel that uh, by following DevOps practices, uh, organizations can actually become elite teams. And the people who don't follow DevOps practices, they are like not elite. And when you are comparing elite teams with the teams which are not following DevOps practices, they find that there's a tremendous improvement when you start doing DevOps in a proper manner. So as you can see on the screen, in terms of code deployment, there's like 973 times improvement. From lead time to commit to deploy is 6570 times improvement. Stability, the MTTR, basically the recovery time, that improves again 6570 times. And there's a marked improvement in the change failure rate also. It's like three times improvement what we're seeing here. So these are very I would say fundamental aspects to see when you want to compare with teams with uh, who follow DevOps and those teams which are not following DevOps. So yeah, I mean we all agree probably that uh, following DevOps practices do give improvements, but we need to see that how we can improve upon that better. Yeah. So when we talk about DevOps, so DevOps is a very large umbrella term nowadays. Uh, People may be doing all sorts of things, and then they can club it together as a DevOps practice. But when we talk about DevOps, there are some fundamental, parts, some fundamental practices which go along with this, which help us in making a complete DevOps ecosystem or a DevOps environment, so to speak of. We have continuous integration, which is basically your developer level environment, how frequently you can commit your code to trunk branches, how you can do developer level tests, automate it, etc. That's a continuous integration practice. You need to probably build cloud native architectures. You can have microservices or aligned, your architecture or platform can be aligned to some cloud platform, maybe a Docker or a Kubernetes, although this is not a mandatory, but it helps if you are having a cloud native architecture for your platform. For that matter, you can do DevOps even without Agile. I mean, you can still be on waterfall and might try to do DevOps, but that's really not getting into the philosophy of DevOps. So we need to kind of think about even re-architecting our systems in order to get the best benefits. Then testing is something which has to be done continuously so that we have the shift left of feedback done in a continuous manner throughout your CI/CD pipeline, and also in an automated manner. Because without automation, you'll never get the full benefits. Then continuous delivery and deployment. So obviously, there may be certain aspects, especially in regulated industries, where you may not be able to deploy on the end platform. For example, if it's an aircraft or a drone, for that, or an MRI machine, for example, on a fully automated manner. But we should still focus at least on an automated continuous delivery so that our software is always in a shippable uh, mode. And when we talk about continuous deployment, we should think about ways of making it more seamless, more automated, whether it is push button or it could be zero touch. So those are things which different organizations, different teams can think and see what is more beneficial for them. I generally associate security with DevOps. I have a very strong opinion that security should be part and parcel of any DevOps environment. So rather than just saying DevOps, we should actually say we want to do DevSecOps. So which essentially means the complete security checks and verifications throughout your CI/CD pipeline. So that's also part of your DevOps environment. And we also have, just like shift left of feedback, so we have the shift right of the operations part. We are releasing software and then we have to continuously monitor it, whether that is alarms, logs, metrics, etc. It's a continuous affair. And people collaboration is a very essential part of any DevOps movement. Without proper collaboration, without proper teamwork, these practices will not help. I mean, just having a new shiny tool will not help. We have to kind of take care of the people aspect also. Site reliability engineering also is something which has gained a lot of prominence, especially when Google started talking about it, and they have very famous book coming from Google which gives details about these practices. So yeah, that's another aspect, and there are many teams which are actually into SRE also nowadays. So yeah, so just wanted to highlight that these are certain building blocks of any DevOps environment. And when we think about having a DevOps environment or a DevOps ecosystem, we should keep in mind that these are some practices which we'll have to follow as part of that. Okay. So I mentioned earlier also that any DevOps environment, any DevOps ecosystem, uh, whether it is working for us or not, we have to properly measure it. Because if you don't measure something, you are not sure whether you are successful or not. So we can measure in under various categories. We can measure the velocity, basically how frequently or how fast we can do some changes, and it could include your deployment frequency. It could include the speed of deployment and speed or frequency of build verification. Then we could measure security incidents also, like how often we are getting security breaches from the market or the production. So that's another important aspect. And whether your productivity has increased by following these practices. So you can actually measure your MTTR, you can measure your feature usage, or the sentiment from which is coming from the customers. What kind of customer satisfaction scores you are getting eventually. Then, in terms of quality of your software, you should measure, whether you are delivering the right level of changes to your end customers or not, with the desired quality or not. So, whether all the requirements are being covered, and how successful are you when you're deploying on staging in production. How many defects are you finding? How many defects you found in the staging part, and how many defects you find in the production environment. So these are different matrices. They are different parameters. I mean, obviously, all teams uh, have a different way of doing things, and you can pick and choose what is best suited for you. But just wanted to give you a glimpse on that. By no means, I'm saying that this is the only set of indicators or measurements. It's just a kind of a brief snapshot. So we talked about matrices. We talked about how we can create elite teams, but what we have seen is that the DevOps movement, we are still struggling with actually how to know that we get the complete value to the customer in the fashion they are expecting it. Because uh, DevOps, starts with your agile planning, the backlog, etc., and you go to the deployment phase. So, how actually you perceived those features, ideated on those features, and how what actually went to the customer, and how quickly it went to the customer, and whether the customer is happy or not happy with that. Those are certain aspects which I believe, it is not possible, to kind of measure in a typical CI/CD environment, in a typical DevOps, environment. So we are never sure, like, whether what the customer expected, whether they got that value or not. So some of the very popular and widespread, and I'm sure you all would have used these kind of tools in your day-to-day work. So, like, we have Kanban boards, for example, where you can actually track the work in progress. Maybe you have some user stories, and you're seeing, like, what is in progress, if there's an obstacle or not, those kind of things. Uh, but again, this is in a piecemeal manner. It is not an end-to-end, picture of the whole product, as such. So you basically are starting from, let's say, the sprint planning and going till the point when the sprint is finished, right? So then it's a basically a picture within that sprint cycle, not outside the sprint boundaries. So then overall, we are not able to keep a track of the eventual value which gets delivered to customers or the clients. And obviously, we have different CI/CD tools. We have CI/CD orchestrators. Maybe you're using Jenkins, you're using GitLab, or whatever your preferred way of working. And you create some pipelines. You can nowadays you can build all kind of fancy pipelines. You can have parallel pipelines, multiple release pipelines, etc. So you get to know, like, how things are going across your pipeline. You can know the build status, for example. Those things are there. How things are, passing or failing across, let's say, CI, CD, those kind of stages. But still, we are not able to realize the level of waste, like in terms of inventory or rework or a business value. So we do have a view from a pipeline perspective, which is a team level view, but we don't have a view in terms of the entire enterprise. So for a big product, there could be multiple teams, uh, multiple microservices, for example, and for each of them, you might have different pipelines. So then you would able to know a view of a particular service, but how does it all correlate with the end-to-end view of the entire product? That is somehow is not visible. So yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we are not able to see the end-to-end visibility of your product and the value which is being delivered by traditional agile and CI/CD tools. So yeah, so I mentioned these things actually. So we have fragmented visibility, like we have piecemeal visibility, and we don't have visibility across different pipelines. And we don't have enough feedback or inputs which we can use to do continuous improvement. That's also something which is we're not able to kind of visualize that. So another aspect, just to it's another representation of the point which I'm trying to stress again and again, that DevOps does give you some view on the value stream, but it's only piecemeal. It's just a part. So you could have different stakeholders, like a business owner, the product manager, you have the engineering product team, you have security people, you have the end customers, etc. I mean, you start with the ideation phase, and then there's a planning and design phase where actually the agile sprint cycle comes into place. You start doing backlog planning and backlog grooming and those kind of things, and then you go ahead with sprint planning, etc. Then your product team is going to implement it, do coding, verification, etc., developer level tests, and eventually you kind of use a continuous delivery pipeline or a continuous deployment pipeline to actually deploy on the end environment. And then on the end environment, you're doing continuous monitoring. And overall, we need to have a complete automated continuous testing, in place. So the CI/CD pipeline, which is going from the start of your backlog, from the agile backlog and the planning phase, and it probably goes till the point you deploy the software on the production environment, and then we are doing continuous operations on that. But if I see that when the product managers, uh, got some idea based on their insight, business insight, or some surveys, or their own thought process. From that phase to eventually what goes to the customers, if they are giving you $1 for a particular feature, so are they able to appreciate that $1, what they have given? Are they able to get back the value of that $1, your customers? Or are you able to sell your features for $1, for example? So all these are different aspects which are somehow not get captured in a CI/CD pipeline way. That is where value stream management helps us. We can. These are not, I would say, antagonistic to each other. They are complementary, I would say. You can combine, you know, the aspects of value stream management and club together with your CI/CD, with your DevOps environment, to make sure that you build a well-tested product, and that is something which is uh, also giving you a light on the kind of value which is ultimately being delivered to the customers. So when we talk about value stream management, I just wanted to give a formal definition by Forrester. So different analyst organizations, they always keep coming up with their own definitions, which are very formal. So it says that it's a combination of people, process, technology that maps, optimizes, visualizes, and governs business value flow, including epics, stories, and work items through heterogeneous enterprise software delivery pipelines. So these are very, I would say, complicated words. But in the simpler terms, I think we can see like the genesis of value stream, how it actually came to the software world. So it really started with Dr. William Edward Deming, uh, who actually brought this concept of value stream management. And then initially, Toyota was using this in their production plants. They were doing value stream management. They were doing lean manufacturing to improve both the quality and efficiency at their plants in Japan. So from we getting inspired from Dr. Deming's work and how Toyota was using lean principles. So those principles were brought into the software world. So we can say that essentially value stream management is a lean business practice which actually helps you determine the value of software development and delivery efforts and resources. It will also help you to improve the flow of value to the organization while managing and monitoring the software delivery lifecycle from end to end. By identifying and examining value streams instead of features and functions and measuring software delivery success, teams can actually focus more energy and time on what works and shift away from what actually doesn't work for them. So essentially, value streams make complex processes visible and ready to pivot. So if needed to drive more value, and they offer a unique view of the software delivery lifecycle through the customer experience lens also, so that we can align better with business objectives and scale our agile and DevOps transformations. So when we talk about value stream management, so we need a tool to actually do that, right? So that tool is the value stream map, which gives you a visualization of the entire flow, and that can actually help in bringing about structured value to your system. So essentially, we can say that a value stream map is a tool which can help in visualizing value streams in an easy to understand series of process steps. It is everything we do to create and deliver value. I mentioned earlier in the lean manufacturing principles are being used here, and we can use this map flow to see the flow of work from ideation stage to production to eventually at the customer level, so that we actually know what the bottlenecks are, and then we can prioritize and remove them. So it not only measures what actually gets delivered, eventually, but also, what is the current state, and what what you want, what is their expectation as such, and what is the projected future state model, and so that we can improve upon that. And so it's basically a ongoing process. It is like a continuous process that you always monitor your current state, and then you have some future state in mind, and you keep on improving. So it's a continuous improvement process. It's not like you do it once and then you can forget about it. Things are very dynamic and they keep on changing. So we can use value stream maps to identify redundancies, constraints, and wastes. And it's, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a natural fit. It's complementary for your delivery pipelines and DevOps. So there can be different ways to build a value stream map. There are some tools, commercial tool products also available, which can help you in doing that. Or if you're just starting out, you can just do with a PowerPoint. So you can make some boxes and kind of record different stages, record the kind of time which is being taken in different stages, and then identify bottlenecks, etc. You can use and start with a PowerPoint or an Excel sheet, and then you can, if you feel comfortable, if you want to go into a next level, you can go for some commercial or some third party product also. So, just wanted to give a brief glimpse of how actually a value stream map looks like. So, this is, as you can see, I mentioned it's a PowerPoint value stream map. So, a very basic map can be created using PowerPoint. This is your typical CI/CD flow. You have a backlog, you start implementation, you have CI process, you have continuous delivery, continuous deployment, and then you have operate after deploying in the production environment. What we see here is, so these bigger boxes, uh, actually you may not be able to see my pointer because of that thing, but yeah. So the bigger boxes, are actually the processing times, and the smaller one, at the bottom side, where we say 3 hour, let's say, waiting for code, and 13 hour waiting for code reviews, 7 hours, request and wait for uh, some resources, and then 11 hours you're waiting for deployment resources. Then 9 hours are request and wait for ops resources. For example, as a developer, if I'm, as an engineer, I'm doing some feature changes. I want to release those feature changes, and for that I have submitted a code review request to my architect or some leader, and that person becomes the single point of choke, single point bottleneck, basically, because he has too many code review requests to do, which actually means that everybody is waiting on him, and there's a lot of time getting wasted here. So this is a bottleneck. For example, the 13-hour thing. We have to see how we kind of optimize it further. Can we delegate the code review responsibility to some other people, or can we, for some minor changes, the code review can be done later after the commit. So I mean, there's nothing good or best strategy. You have to think what will work best for your scenario. And then again, if you see 11 hours, you're just waiting for the deployment resources. So this is something which will typically not you'll not be able to visualize uh, in your regular pipeline CI/CD, dashboards, etc. You can only see these things uh, when you are actually making a value stream map. So you have to see that so much time isn't getting wasted because maybe your self-service portal is not fully optimized, or as an organization you need to work on making sure that people are able to get deployment resources quickly. Because when we start with the backlog and then we come to the operate phase, the overall is your lead time for any feature to be released to the market. And if you see here, you see the different times duration, you realize that there's a big contributing factor of different bottlenecks we are contributing to the lead time. And just by optimizing on that, you can make a more efficient system. So this is how a value stream map would be helpful. This is something which probably you'll not see on a Kanban board or an agile sprint board, but you can see these things in a value stream map. Very simple. We don't need to do fancy things. We can start with very simple PowerPoint, and you can start building. So earlier we saw what Forrester has to say. Now let's see what Gartner has to say about value stream and value stream maps. So what Gartner claims actually is that by 2023, 70% of organizations will use value stream management to improve flow in the DevOps pipeline, leading to faster delivery of customer value. So we can argue whether that is 70% or 80% or 50%. No one knows. I mean, who knows, right? And whether that will be 23 or 24 or 25, no one knows about it. But I think we should take the essence of this message is that industry people are thinking about using value stream maps along with your DevOps ecosystem. These things are complementary. Industry is appreciating that. More and more people are imbibing these practices, and it is in our interest, that uh, we at least evaluate. I will encourage you to at least evaluate when you go back and see that whether it makes sense for you to actually start using value stream, maps. So I'm not saying that mandatorily use it. Just see what works best for you. See, try to do some exercises yourself and see if it makes sense. Because if a lot of people are actually trying to do that, maybe they're seeing something which will give them more benefit. So a fundamental aspect of any value stream is actually the flow of your work items through the different stages, which actually starts with the ideation phase where you have product requirements, you're collecting them, you're refining them, right? And you're creating backlogs. You start with that. Then you do the integration phase where you're actually implementing the feature or the product and doing some developer level test. And then the validation phase, you're actually validating or verifying the functionalities as per expectations or not. And then operations, you actually launch or deliver it to the production environment and make it, and it becomes live basically. Eventually you see what's the value you are getting. So what I wanted to highlight with this figure or this flow diagram was that this is typically how work basic work items actually flow through your entire value stream, and you should be aware that how much time you spend actually doing that work versus waiting for some kind of a bottleneck or a resource or a person to be available for performing some responsibility. This will help you in realizing how you can better optimize your entire flow. So I mentioned that you can use PowerPoint. Even before a PowerPoint, I think I like sticky notes a lot. I'm sure you would all be using them a lot, in your day-to-day work, whether you're doing agile planning or DevOps and task tracking, etc. Guess what? You can use these sticky notes for value stream maps also, right? Just very simple. Take a whiteboard, some markers, some sticky notes, and start plotting, your various stages and the processing time and the bottlenecks which you have. If you don't want to draw some diagrams on the tool, you can always take a picture just like this one and store it somewhere so that you can refer it to it later. And while you're at it, you need to identify some flow metrics for yourself. I'm giving a sample here, but obviously you can pick and choose and you can come out with some other matrices also, which can actually help you in optimizing your value stream. You can think about the velocity of change, how frequently you can kind of deliver features, the distribution aspect, the time which you take for different features across different stages, what is your efficiency in a terms of your processing time versus bottleneck time, the kind of load which you're having in terms of how many features you're churning out with your team strength, etc. These are some matrices which you can think about, and you can track them. As I mentioned earlier, you have a lead time which goes from end to end, and then you have processing time for various activities in between. So you can probably use both of these to actually see that how much time is the value added time actually, how much time you're taking in processing and how much you're taking in waiting. And then what is the wait time, which is a non-value added time. So any time which is where you're waiting, it's a non-value time, right? And we have to kind of we should desire to make it zero, right? And then your processes percentage of time your processes can use results of prior stage without rework. That's another aspect. You can keep a track of that. Again, by no means these are the only ways of identifying and optimizing your bottlenecks. You can think of some other mechanisms also. The idea is to bring out your um, challenges, your obstacles, your bottlenecks out in front, and then start optimizing it. Because when we start doing things, I would say, um, if you bring out on a whiteboard, on a paper or a sticky, things come out very elegantly out, and you know the true picture. If things are just hidden on a tool you mentioned in some report or something here, so things actually remain hidden only, and you don't know the entire story actually. So we talked earlier about what is value stream management. We can use value stream maps to actually do value stream management, and then what kind of tools you can use, how that will look like. Now I wanted to kind of touch upon one way of or one mechanism of creating a value stream map. I like to call it an assessment workshop. You can call it something else also. I mean, when I say assessment workshop, it's just a glorified way of saying that we have a focused meeting of different stakeholders, and that meeting, I mean, there could be multiple meetings spread over a few days, where we all come together and try to assess the current situation. But there are certain steps which we need to follow in order to make this process successful. First of all, we need to make sure that we have the right audience in place, the right participants are there. So identify different stakeholders. They could be your engineers, developers, QA people, product managers, project managers. You know, all different kind of stakeholders are there who have a stake in the product as such. That is a stakeholder. So they all should come together. And then, important is choose a facilitator, a moderator or a facilitator, who can who has some experience in doing these assessments and creating value stream maps, uh, who can actually bring everybody together on a common stage, and can help in creating these maps. So before going for your meetings or assessment meetings, do some preparation. We cannot boil the ocean actually. So we need to pick and choose. We need to take baby steps. So identify some areas where you actually want to focus and optimize. Align all your stakeholders and inform them beforehand of the what process you're going to take and what you're about to achieve. I think that holds for all meetings or all workshops, that before people enter, everybody's time is precious. You all are busy doing uh, your day-to-day stuff. So tell people like what do you want to achieve and what will you get out of the meeting as such before the actual meeting. So assess the current state using the value stream maps in this workshop setting, and try to create those maps as accurately as possible, because the accuracy of the data, the more accurate the data, the more helpful it will be. Otherwise, we'll again not be sure like what we want to achieve. And eventually, when you publish the results, identify these different bottlenecks. So I think make sure before you end your meeting, create some, I would say, future action plan. How are you going to analyze these value streams, identify the bottlenecks, to have discussions? That's fine. Uh, do all the fighting which you want to do within the meeting, but try to come to a closure and a common, agreement that okay, these are one, two, or three areas that we want to improve, and these are some steps we want to take. Just keep a record of it, like what are the bottlenecks and what kind of solutions you're proposing for that. So I just wanted to help with, what should you look for in a facilitator or a moderator. Obviously, that person should understand what value stream is. He should be sold on this concept, right? Because when you go for that meeting, there would be many people who might still think that, hey, we already have DevOps and Agile. I've been doing it for many years. I don't need value stream. It's waste of time. But at least the facilitator should be convinced, and they should have some past experience doing these kind of workshops and creating these value stream maps. He should be aware of your overall product as such. He may not be a developer, but he should be aware of your application or the product which is there, and how VSM, the value stream management, can apply to your particular application. He should be aware of all those things. I think, needless to say, the person, any facilitator, has to be a good communicator, because he has to put forth his point properly and make sure that people agree to that. And he also has to be a good facilitator. Like, he has to see what level of push and pull he has to do, and how he can bring everybody to the same page. And for participants also, I mentioned earlier, also have people from diverse areas, like from development, QA, product management, project management. These should be people who have a stake in the product and who can actually influence, the day-to-day working, right? If there's someone from outside coming in and attending a meeting, he might add some value, but eventually he's not the one who's going to do the changes. So he'll have limited utility. He or she will have limited utility as such. Uh, Conduct these workshops in team spirit, and be open-minded to all suggestions, because some of the suggestions may not be comfortable, which should be fine. Because if you're accusing one person in the meeting that because of this guy all the code reviews get stuck, so he may not like it, but that person has to be open-minded. So yeah, select some values which you want to optimize on. So you can choose some other values also which are not in this list. That's fine. This is just a very small sample. Whether you want to optimize on the time to market, then you have to measure the lead time. Do you want to optimize on quality, like how many changes get accepted without rework? Stability in terms of system failure percentage, efficiency, what is the total cost per output, security, and then customer satisfaction also. So choose a particular value and then work on that. Uh, this is another kind of I would say, a tool which you can use in a way, like you have different values. You know how to measure them through some metrics. So try to give some value, numerical value, like what is the current level of maturity, and what is the desired level of maturity which you want, what is the gap percentage. So you may have very high gap, but it may not be critical. For example, quality has a gap of 300%, but its priority is 3, whereas stability has a gap of 150%, but its ranking is 1. So yeah, I mean, after doing the gap analysis, rank these different values in terms of your priority. So here in this particular example, we want to address stability before we address quality. And you might want to do in a different way, which is fine, because the stakeholders in the workshop, they have to take a call what they really want, right? So yeah, just rank it and then work on that. And I would say again, after some time, meet again, maybe after a few sprints, or at least once in a PI meeting, or once in a quarter, maybe at least just meet and then see that how things are going and how you need to reprioritize things. So we all have feature teams, we have scrum teams. Um Although we make sure that we have scrum of scrum meetings and those kind of things going on, different kind of ceremonies, but more often than not, we again see that these teams uh, start working in their own silos. So they have different ways of breaking those silos. One way is to keep on breaking these teams and form new teams, but again, it is debatable. Some people may not like it, some organizations may not like it, and some may want to have it, teams which are sticking together for a long time for various reasons. But we should try to still see that can we reorganize our teams in terms of value streams. So you have identify some values on which you want to work: stability, quality, um, lead time, for example. And in each of these, for each of these value streams, you pick people from the different scrum teams that you have, so that they all have a common goal for a particular value which they want to deliver. So this is one way, you can experiment and try to see whether it works or not. I'm not saying that this is something which you have to do, just an idea that you can think about it. That eventually, if you can do and just try for yourself if it is giving you more benefits or not. So having come thus far, so just wanted to reiterate again that value streams are complementary to DevOps. They help to see the current situation and the desired state where we want to go. Uh, it helps us in creating a common goal, a common theme for the entire product team. We can prioritize value-added activities through these workshops, these value stream mapping activities, and it can help in uh, taking decisions based on data, the gap, the priorities, etc. And it also provides a criteria for success of your teams. And if you really see that uh, the Gene Kim in his very famous book on DevOps had given three ways of DevOps. And if you can see that the value stream mapping actually aligns for these uh, three ways. So the first way says that increase the flow of work from left to right, right? So the value stream actually helps in visualizing the workflow from ideation to deployment. It also clearly shows the constraints and thus the remedial measures that can be taken to take care of any bottleneck. So it aligns with the first way. And then we say that in the second way, like we say that shorter feedback loops and shifting left. So here, everyone is required to deliver the value as a part of the value stream, and it is about breaking the silos across the entire organization for one common shared objective, delivering better software which is faster and which is more stable and safer. And the third way, it's about continuous improvement. We say that DevOps is the journey, improvement, where as you go along that road, you become more and more expert on that. Similarly, value stream management helps us in identifying the constraints. It helps in improving the process by adding automation and removing non-contributing steps. The management system can connect to the tools of the entire CI/CD pipeline to define both the current state and future state value stream maps. It then shows that what improvements we can take, and we can do any course correction required. So it's a continuous improvement process. Once you start the value stream mapping management, etc., you need to make sure that you're doing continuously, because uh, we want to don't be static, and new problems and challenges keep on coming, and we want to optimize the processes uh, continuously. So yeah, so in the end, I like to again reiterate that your typical DevOps practices require some metrics, and I'm sure you all would have been using something. Um, DevOps processes don't give you the complete picture, and this is where value stream management can help us in mapping, optimizing, visualizing, and governing business flow. And this the best way to do value stream mapping is on a whiteboard in a workshop kind of setting, sitting with all the stakeholders. And this helps you in transforming from sided stream to value streams, and making sure that you're removing bottlenecks in a continuous way, so that you're eventually giving more and more uh, value to your customers. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. I thank you all to be patient with me. I'll be more than happy to take any questions if you have. You can obviously put that on the chat window, or I'm not sure if you can actually you want to talk about it, or you want to share some experience. I will be very happy to. discussing that also.
Thank you very much. Let's have a look at some questions popping up. While you're talking about the integration of the value streams, you always highlight the metrics. How do you see it in the combination, for example, with SLOs, which we see also increasingly relevant for teams developing platforms and tools?
Yeah. So SLO, SLI, as I mentioned, maybe SRE is kind of part of the overall DevOps umbrella, so as such. So it certainly helps us in knowing the level, uh, service level objectives. So it is complementary, I would say. This is another metric, which you can track. I would say, like I mentioned, some matrices, and by no means they are the entire, the metric. You can include SLO also and see that whether that actually helps you in tracking the value which you're delivering to your customer. So if you just want to track SLO and then see that if that makes your customer happy, or if you want to just track SLO and see that uh, you're able to kind of remove the bottlenecks, optimize your processes. So it's fine. I mean, ultimately, you as a team have to decide on that.
So I don't see any further questions so far from the audience. Pretty sure Gurpreet will be around, so you can reach out at him and ask your questions maybe afterwards if you have something coming up to your mind. And then
Yeah,
thank you very much.
thank you so much, Max. And I think just drop me a message. I've shared my coordinates also. I'll be available on the Slack channel also. So if someone wants to have some kind of any kind of discussion, I'll be more than happy to engage with you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Take care.
you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.